Hi, good evening. We'll start in about a half a minute, 35 seconds or so. Good evening, all. It's 7 o'clock here in the northeast of the United States, 7 p.m. that is. And this is the Tibet Center, Kunchab Tarduling, a Buddhist meditation and study center located in New York City and northern New Jersey under the direction of His Eminence Chabje Ling Rinpoche and also under the direct direction, right, of Venerable Nikki Vreeland or Kempo Thupten Lundap of Rato Monastery. This is our twice weekly presentation of the Buddha Dharma, specifically Stages on the Path to Enlightenment, the LamRim of Lama Tsong-kha-pa. If there is any problem with the sound, the picture, etc., and so forth, please text me or Mr. Darren Smith immediately. If there's anyone for whom you want us to pray for, please put their names in the chat box or comment section, or what do they call it these days? Who knows? These days, Sonny, as soon as possible, because at the end there's like a minute and a half delay and I don't see all of them anyway, so no big deal. We're going to do a little bit on patience tonight. I can't wait. And also we'll pick up where we left off in the studying the inside chapters of the LamRim, specifically chapter 10 of LamRim Chenmo volume 3. We'll have enough of that. It's thick, so half of the class is like an introductory material, and the first half, and something for people who are shopping, doesn't know much about Buddhism, but very helpful. And then the second part is kind of heavy. It's a culmination of Buddhist philosophy, the final worldview. So we'll start. The prayers we say are all on the Tibet Center website, the tibetcenter.org. Scroll down to the FAQ section and then scroll down to prayers. Prayer for the spreading of the teachings throughout the length and breadth of the West. By the force of the blessings of the non-fallacious three precious gems and of the truth of our pure selfless wishes, may the precious Buddhist teachings flourish and spread to the expanse of all areas throughout the length and breadth of the West, for all the people living here together with their near ones, who have engaged in the teachings and have faith and respect for them. May all conditions adverse to their practice of the pure Dharma be dispelled, and an excellent collection of favorable conditions increase like the waxing moon. And especially for those who work on methods to accomplish the flourishing and spreading of the victorious one's teachings, which are the source of benefit and happiness. May they never be oppressed by masses of interference and adverse conditions, and may this spontaneously happen just as we have hoped and wished. The Heart Sutra. Thus have I heard once the Blessed One was dwelling in the royal domain of the Vulture Peak Mountain together with a big gathering of great monks and great bodhisattvas. At that time, the Blessed One entered the samadhi which examines the dharmas called profound illumination, and at the same time, noble Avalokiteshvara, the bodhisattva, mahasattva, looking at the profound practice of transcendent knowledge, saw the five skandhas in their natural emptiness. Then, through the inspiration of the Buddha, Venerable Shariputra said to Avalokiteshvara, how should those noble ones learn who wish to follow the profound practice of transcendent knowledge? And Avalokiteshvara answered, Venerable Shariputra, whoever wishes to follow the profound practice of transcendent knowledge should look at it like this, seeing the five skandhas in their natural emptiness. Form is empty. Emptiness itself is form. Emptiness is not separate from form. Form is not separate from emptiness. In the same way, feeling, discriminating, awareness, compositional factors, and consciousness are empty. Thus all the dharmas are empty and have no characteristics. They are unborn and unceasing. They are not impure or pure. They neither decrease nor increase. Therefore, since there is emptiness, there is no form, no feeling, no discriminating awareness, no compositional factors, no consciousness, no eye, no ear, no nose, no tongue, no body, no mind, no appearance, no sound, no smell, no taste, no sensation, no objects of mind, no quality of sight, no quality of hearing, no quality of smelling, no quality of tasting, no quality of sensing, no quality of thought, no quality of mind consciousness. There are no nidanas from ignorance to old age and death, nor their wearing out. There is no suffering, no cause of suffering, no ending of suffering, and no path, no wisdom, no attainment, no non-attainment. Therefore, since there is no attainment, the bodhisattvas abide by means of transcendent knowledge, and since there is no obscurity of mind, they have no fear. They transcend falsity and pass beyond the bounds of sorrow. All the Buddhas who dwell in the past, present, and future by means of transcendent knowledge, fully and clearly awaken to unsurpassed, true, complete enlightenment. Therefore, the mantra of transcendent knowledge, the mantra of deep insight, the unsurpassed mantra, the unequaled mantra, the mantra which calms all suffering should be known as truth, for there is no deception. In transcendent knowledge, the mantra is proclaimed Tayata Om Gate Gate Paragate Parasam Gate Bodhisoha. Shariputra, this is how a bodhisattva, mahasattva, should learn profound transcendent knowledge. Then the Blessed One arose from that samadhi and praised the bodhisattva mahasattva Avalokiteshvara, saying, Good, good, O son of noble family, profound, transcendent knowledge should be practiced just as you have taught, and the Tathagatas will rejoice. When the Blessed One had said this, Shariputra and the Avalokiteshvara, that whole gathering in the world, with its gods, humans, asuras, and gandharvas, their hearts full of joy, praised the words of the Blessed One, the whole group. Refuge and Bodhisattva vow, which we recite 3 times. With the wish to free all beings, I shall always go for refuge to the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha until I reach full enlightenment. Enthused by wisdom and compassion today in the Buddha's presence, I generate the mind for full awakening for the benefit of all sentient beings. As long as space remains, as long as sentient beings remain, until then may I too remain and dispel the miseries of the world. With the wish to free all beings, I shall always go for refuge to the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha until I reach full enlightenment. Enthused by wisdom and compassion today in the Buddha's presence, I generate the mind for full awakening for the benefit of all sentient beings. As long as space remains, as long as sentient beings remain, until then may I too remain and dispel the miseries of the world. With the wish to free all beings, I shall always go for refuge to the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha until I reach full enlightenment. Enthused by wisdom and compassion today in the Buddha's presence, I generate the mind for full awakening for the benefit of all sentient beings. As long as space remains, as long as sentient beings remain, until then may I too remain and dispel the miseries of the world. May all the pains of living creatures ripen solely upon myself, and through the might of the Bodhisattva Sangha, may all beings experience happiness. May the teachings, which are the sole medicine for suffering and the origin of every joy, be materially supported and honored and abide for a very long time. I prostrate to Manjagosha, through whose kindness wholesome minds ensue, and I prostrate to my spiritual masters, through whose kindness I develop. We need help to develop. Okay. As a cause for the swift return of Rato Chunla Rinpoche, His Holiness composed this prayer, a prayer for a swift return. It's on our website. Exalted wisdom of all victors gathered in a drop, sole refuge manifest in the form of the one wearing saffron robes, Guru Lozang Tuwang Dorje Chang, please bear witness here today that our prayers may be fulfilled. We beseech the great torch of doctrine, accomplishing from long ago the vast waves of aspirational prayers, Lord of speech of the Victor Lozang's teachings, spreading them to the ends of the earth by means of explanation and practice. Though holding the commitment, I will invite all beings to be my guests in unsurpassed great awakening. Yet you have withdrawn the activities of the form body that serves the welfare of others. Is that worthy of the supreme among beings, the Bodhisattvas? Though impossible for you till cyclic existence's end to abandon your commitment to liberate all beings, we beseech the new son of Nirmanakaya to swiftly return from the realm of Dharmakaya, brought forth by bodhicitta drawn by 7 steeds. Having reached the far limits of scholarship, religious life, and goodness, please come swiftly as an unrivaled supreme emanation, full holder of the sage's teachings and wish-fulfilling jewel, return as the glory of Lozang Tenpe. Magnificent truth of the 3 precious jewels, Mahakala, Karma, Yam, and Sri Mata Devi, and the ocean of Dharma protectors, may you spontaneously fulfill our wish, the swift blossoming of the reincarnation's fresh moonlight face. Good. Okay. So, something a little different, something you haven't heard before. Of course, some of you have, but this is from a book called Peaceful Heart, and who doesn't need it? The Buddhist practice of patience. What it is a commentary on the patience chapter, quote, or the 6th chapter of Shantideva's Bodhisattva Karavatara, the way of the Bodhisattva, however you want to translate, Guide to the Bodhisattva's Way of Life, and on. By Dzigar Kongtrul Rinpoche. I like it, but that doesn't mean anything. What the hell, right? Who cares what I like? I think you'll find it useful. Simple, direct. We'll start with his introduction, and I won't start with the first few paragraphs because he mentions, well, first of all, he has this quality called sewa, T-S-E-W-A, a Tibetan word. I have no idea exactly what it means. He says this is an innate quality that we all have of a warm, open heart. Sewa. Those who speak Tibetan, I think Tara Mantra, you speak Tibetan, maybe you can contribute. Tenzin Churab, if you please. Nala Rokpache Ronan. Anyway, we'll pick it up on page 2 of his introduction. It's very real world, which I like. I like things that help me right away. I don't want to wait until I develop a realization. I want it now. Anyway, for most of us in these modern times, life is full of busyness, drive, and speed. When we are caught up in this outer activity day and night, it is difficult to connect deeply to ourselves and others. Unless we want to stay in this disconnected state, we need to find some gaps in day-to-day life where we can pause and look within. Very important. These are opportunities to ask ourselves some basic but indispensable questions. What am I trying to achieve? Why? What am I so fixated on? Why? What exactly goes on inside of me, minute by minute, hour by hour, day by day? What do I feel? What is my view of life? What are my greater aspirations? Most of us cover up whatever's going on in our mind. We don't just move on. That's the recipe for eternal frustration. Well, not eternal, nothing is, but I mean, so he's telling us, look inward, take a break. You don't have to sit in a cushion and go up in the woods, whatever. When we can't sleep at night, or when we have a few moments to sit in a park, a quiet place, or even at the airport, anything but a quiet place, but you're stuck there, we should ask ourselves such questions. Then, instead of coming up with an immediate answer, we should go a little deeper and let ourselves genuinely discover where we are. We should listen to the voice of our deeper intelligence, something we have but we don't even look into. A free tool, the indispensable tool. Anyway, he continues on page 2. I believe that anyone who pursues this kind of inner research, I like the word inner research, will eventually come to the same conclusion. Beneath our ambitions and activities, what we all seek comes down to something very simple. A sense of well-being, full of joy, peace, satisfaction, meaning, and spark. You hear that, Marie Kondo? Spark joy. We want these feelings to be with us, not just for some scattered moments, but all the time without any interruption. As Geshe Lakto says, we want eternal happiness. We want it constantly. We always want it. We want the best. Yeah, we do. This means well-being, as Dzigar Tulku continues, this means well-being can't depend solely on outer conditions. Think about it. Well-being cannot depend on outer conditions. It must come from within, from a mind that is flexible, healthy, and resilient. We're not in a pure land. Outer conditions, you know what they're like. We all know, no matter where you live. To live in such a state of continual joy and peace is really what we're all after. This is the basic aspiration that we all have at our core, no matter how our hopes, fears, habits, and drives play out and manifest on the outside. I think every being thinks that's the situation for every being. What can we do to fulfill this aspiration? This is not a brand new question for anyone. We've all been working on this project our entire lives, but have we succeeded? His Holiness always says, all beings want happiness, and everything you do is to get happiness, including going crazy and yelling at people. Have we succeeded? If we had, we wouldn't have much incentive to study and practice the Dharma or any other spiritual tradition. We'd be, rolling along, nice. So at this point, it would be useful to examine our old methods, to understand why they don't work, and to see if we can find a better approach. Practical. He continues, our habitual way of trying to achieve happiness and fulfillment is to focus our love and care on ourselves, and perhaps a few others to whom we feel connected. This is what we do most of the time. Yet, all of us have also had experiences when our hearts feel much more open. We've had moments of deep warmth and tenderness towards complete strangers, or even people we normally dislike. The gap in our usual propaganda broadcast that we do internally. So he continues, having had both types of experience, a narrowly self-centered heart and an open, unbiased heart, we can compare our mental and emotional well-being in the two cases. When our tenderness was focused mainly on ourselves, how much deep joy and satisfaction did we feel, even when things went our way? How did that feeling compare to our more selfless, all-embracing moments when our kindness and compassion stretched beyond their usual boundaries? Which of these two feelings will we like to prevail in our hearts? Instant meditation, reflect on that. That's a big deal. He continues, this is an investigation we need to do for ourselves, based on our own experiences and not just taking someone else's word for it. I found that when my tsewa, as warm heart, etc., is limited to one or a few people, I suffer in a box of self-absorption. The box of self-absorption. Wow. My world feels small, and my mind feels anxious. I don't think most of us understand this, and now he's pointing it out, so now we can look for it. A good guru. So, instead of flowing freely and exuberantly as its inherent tendency, I hate that word, but in this case we don't mean as its innate tendency, we could say, my tsewa becomes imprisoned by my own self-cherishing and self-protection. So this natural warm feeling becomes corrupted by self-cherishing, protecting. On the other hand, when my heart is open, I naturally feel joy, which I gladly spread to others. In summary, my personal research has led me to conclude that the main factor determining my joy and well-being is the openness of my own heart. What is His Holiness Dalai Lama saying? Warm heart. There is no limit, Dziga Rinpoche continues. Dziga Kongtrul Rinpoche, he's in that lineage of Kongtruls. There is no limit to how much our hearts can open. Our tsewa can become so far-reaching and impartial that it covers all people, all animals, all living beings, everywhere. We can care so much for these beings that their happiness becomes our happiness, and their pain becomes our pain. When we are filled with such deep love for others, we wish only the best for them, as a mother wishes only the best for her children. This gives our lives profound meaning, fulfillment, and joy. In this state, we deeply enjoy our freedom from the obsessive self-concern that usually plagues us. The obsessive self-concern. And of course, we define ourselves the wrong way too. It's a whole wrong assessment, and we act on that, which the second part of the class covers. We do it all here at the Tibet Center. In my own experience, he continues, and from what my teachers have taught me, no positive state of mind can surpass this free-flowing tsewa. No material success, pleasure, comfort, recognition, knowledge, or, quote, intelligence can come close. It's not that I'm dismissing these things as unimportant. If we have tsewa, we may enhance our lives. But if the heart is closed, such things can do very little to bring about true happiness. As we reflect on tsewa and examine it through our own experience, we may come to see it as our most precious possession. When we value something so highly, we go to a lot of trouble to take care of it. For example, most of us spend a great deal of our time doing things related to wealth. We are continually trying to gather, protect, and increase our money. This can involve working long hours, seeking promotions, watching the stock market rise and fall, yeah, searching for bargains, buying insurance policy, and so on. Policies and so on. Each of these pursuits involves struggle, hope, and fear and suffering. Yay! Exactly. I mean, put it. You have to do these things, but you better do it the right way. With a lightness. With sewa, we also need to put effort into gathering, protecting, and increasing. We gather sewa simply by remembering to let the heart be open, which is its natural and most joyful condition. We protect sewa by averting and removing obstacles and threats that can rob us of this joyful state, and we increase it by training to expand our love to more and more things. His Holiness says bodhicitta and warm heart will even improve your physical health. Dziga Kongtrul continues on page 5. Of these three efforts, this book is mainly concerned with protection. The obstacles and threats to tsewa come in many forms, but will arise from a heart that is in some way feeling disturbed. Something is happening that we don't like, and inside we feel some level of irritation. This could be a very subtle aggression that we may not even notice, or it could be a blatant, almost intolerable emotion that culminates in an ugly outburst of anger. There's degrees. I think we know what he's talking about. However it appears, all right, I got it. It always comes with some kind of inner rejection. We reject whatever is occurring in our lives. This means that we are separating ourselves from the world and from others. When we feel aggression, the heart starts to close. Our precious, nourishing tsewa ceases its flow. This is why the 8th century sage Shantideva refers to aggression as our sorrow-bearing enemy, and why I felt inspired to write a book about its antidote, patience. Now he goes, the word patience is a translation of the Tibetan word zopa, like Lama Zopa, Geshe Zopa. Other common translations are tolerance and forbearance. For the sake of simplicity, I will use patience, but the essence of zopa is more like not getting disturbed, able to tolerate, unperturbed, not getting disturbed. And we have to work on that talent. If you have it, boy, do you have a powerful weapon for your own happiness. When we are not disturbed, our hearts are at peace and sewa flows abundantly. None of us would rather feel disturbed than be in this ideal state. But most of the time we have no sense of how not to get disturbed. How can we prevent that? We have no idea how to practice sopa, patience. On one hand, we may think that the key to not getting disturbed is to avoid any situation that might disturb us. Makes sense, no? It's common sense not to place yourself purposely in stressful or irritating situations, but it is impossible to avoid most of the countless hardships and misfortunes that come to all of us here in the samsara environment. That's its nature. Even people who have safe, comfortable lives, quote, usually find plenty of things that disturb them or things to complain about. Oh, yes. This is why every Buddhist method focuses on changing our mind, not our outer world. On the other hand, we may steel ourselves to remain undisturbed in difficult situations by mastering the approach of grin and bear it. But that is also not what's meant by zopa. That's not patience. Grinning and bearing it is no different from suppressing or bottling up our emotions. It is a guaranteed method of turning the mind into a pressure cooker, which will at some point explode. And I think we all have, we know exactly what he's talking about. Hold your tongue at work, and then you go home, you take it out on some other poor person. What's going on? Yeah, all right, page 6, he continues. To enjoy life in an undisturbed state, what I like to call peaceful heart, we need to understand and be aware of how we get disturbed in the first place. Then we need to have effective antidotes for each kind of disturbance. Antidotes that make sense to us and are easy to apply. These two subjects, the causes of emotional disturbance and their antidotes, make up the core of this book and the core of the 6th chapter of Shantideva's book. Prior to him introducing in the 9th chapter, I'm talking about Shantideva, the ultimate antidote to everything, the right view of reality. In the meanwhile, these things help the mind to balance, so we can be brought to the point where we could sit calmly, and then we can absorb these higher trainings. So that's the purpose, a very good system in Buddhism. It's important to emphasize that patience is a practice of learning to experience feelings that are hard to tolerate without reacting in ways that cause harm to oneself or others. As with any Buddhist practice, there are many nuances and instructions for meeting different circumstances. We are fortunate enough to have an unbroken lineage of accomplished teachers who have passed on their knowledge and experience from individual to individual until this very day. One of the most popular texts to be transmitted through the generations is Shantideva's Way of the Bodhisattva, which this book is a comment on the 6th chapter of. Yay. Though it is 1,300 years old, wow, it went by like that, its poignant and concise teachings are as relevant as ever to people of modern times. Yes, amen, yes. When he taught his students about patience, my root teacher, His Holiness Dilgo Chensei Rinpoche, based most of his teachings on the 6th chapter of this work, commonly referred to as the Patience chapter. Following the noble tradition of my teachers, instead of making up my own ideas about patience, I will take the 134 stanzas of the Patience chapter as the framework and inspiration for everything I have to say. Thus, I hope you will consider this book to be blessed by Shantideva's own wisdom and compassion, and that all of the fully realized sages who have come between us, from Shantideva on to today. The word Bodhisattva in Shantideva's title refers to a person who strives to attain enlightenment for the benefit of all living beings. And we heard this. Enlightenment is the state of mind of a Buddha, one who has awakened to the ultimate potential, sometimes called fully evolved by Alex Berzin. Wonderful word. It is the most positive state of mind possible, a state of perfect, irreversible happiness and perfect, irreversible freedom from suffering. Sounds good. Where do I sign? Right here, the Tibet Center. No. It is the ultimate state of peaceful heart, from which love flows continually and without impediment. And I might add, non-prejudicial love, great love towards everyone. A bodhisattva's motivation is not just to achieve this state for oneself, in order to dwell on an island of individual bliss. No, we're not into that. But to use the powerful qualities of enlightenment for the maximum benefit of all beings. Emphasis on all. This noble aspiration is the supreme expression of Tsewa. It fills the bodhisattva's life with profound happiness and meaning. This is why bodhisattvas are said to go from joy to joy, despite being fully aware of and connected to the tremendous sufferings of this world. Shantideva's intention in composing the Patience chapter was to give people engaged in the bodhisattva path a set of thorough instructions for maintaining this supremely peaceful heart in the face of every kind of challenge and threat. My intention in writing this book is the same, to pass on any advice from my teachers that may help you work with whatever disturbances arise in your life and mind, so you may meet them and use them to grow and progress on your path. I hope that by learning and applying the practice of patience, you will discover that all difficult circumstances, people, and emotions can be used to open your heart rather than close it. What time do we have? A little bit more. I'll give you his first comment on the first verse of Shantideva. I don't know, unless somebody's saying no, not we had enough. Let's see. David, I hope you're feeling better. Okay, no, all right. This is Shantideva's first verse of the 6th chapter. All the good works gathered in 1,000 ages, such as deeds of generosity and offerings to the blessed ones, a single flash of anger shatters them. Well, there's an explanation of that, so don't get upset. Shantideva immediately sets out to warn us about the negative power of aggression. Appreciating its potential for destruction gives us strong incentive to learn and apply these teachings. We all know from experience how unpleasant it is to be engulfed in full-blown anger. But it is worth exploring how and to what extent all forms of aggression cause damage. If our own happiness depends on our warmth and tenderness towards others, then what can we say about a state of mind that is oriented towards harming others? As the Indian sage Padma Sangye said, one act of aggression is heavier than 100 acts of desire. As an illustration, say that you see a homeless beggar on the street. This is very real world. This is very good for New York. As an illustration, see that you see a homeless beggar on the street. You take a moment to imagine yourself in the beggar's shoes. It becomes clear to you that he wants to be free from suffering as much as you do. Immense sewa wells up in your heart. This altruistic feeling immediately reduces your self-absorption, bringing peace to your mind, if you're watching what's going on internally. Then, if you give the beggar some money, food, or kind words, or simply acknowledge him, you experience the joy of your own warm heart. But then, suppose the beggar says or does something that offends you. No. And you react with irritation or even anger. Immediately your positive state of mind is washed away. It is as if your compassion and generosity never even took place. The positive effects of your good heart and good deeds are destroyed, both for yourself and for the beggar. Now, instead of helping the beggar, you would rather cause him harm. Yeah, it turns like that. We've seen that, those of you who have given money to the various hard winos on the street or junkies or whatever, they're out of control. So we could say that feeling irritated is not quite the same as wishing harm, but unconsciously, we do harbor some ill intent. Maybe we haven't formulated a wish to hurt the person who annoys us, but we have more subtle negative intentions or forms of rejection. For example, you may hope that the beggar learns something from the consequences of his deeds. Oh yeah, he'll pay for that. You may feel satisfied when he got what he deserved, that justice did his job by showing what happens to a man who misbehaves. Oh yeah, we're all little dictators and all. But anytime you rejoice in another person's misfortune, you are annihilating your own altruistic state of mind. Anytime you harbor ill will toward another sentient being, you are damaging your own sewa. The mind's events flow on in a stream, one at a time. When the mind is negative, it can't simultaneously be positive. That would be like darkness and light existing together. So whenever we feel anger towards someone, we should remember our mind and be on the lookout for any negative thoughts or intentions that accompany the emotion. Very important here, because that sets up a bad, karmic seed. If this is too hard in the heat of the moment, we can examine our mind in the aftermath when we have cooled down enough to have more perspective. We can see why anger destroys peaceful heart in the moment, but Shantideva goes further than this, stating that a burst of anger can destroy all the good works gathered in 1,000 ages. How could such a large effect come from such a small cause? We can understand how this is possible by looking at how our mind and its habits can change from negative to positive and vice versa in an instant. We may understand clearly how warmth and tenderness contribute to our own lives and those of the people around us. We may be convinced, based on the teachings and our own contemplations, that this is the truth, but that doesn't mean we can act on our wisdom in all situations. We may know this, but we don't have the innate strength to come out with it instantly. We build that up. Until we're overcome, he continues, until we've overcome all our self-centered habits and instincts, we will still be drawn to think and act against our own open heart. For a long time, our habits will retain some of their power to overwhelm our wisdom. Even long-term practitioners may find themselves being dragged back into the swamp of confusion over and over again. So we'll leave it at that because we're running out of space. We have to keep with the other. I'll mark the page. We'll go back to this book from time to time because who doesn't need patience, especially when trying to develop spiritual qualities? The cat has knocked over my old copy of the LamRim, which is practically in tatters. So give me a second. I bet you're a pain in the butt. You know that? I'm telling you right in front of everybody. Big pain in the butt. Sorry, guys. Sorry for the delay. We are on chapter 10 of LamRim 3. And I'm trying to find all the pages that have fallen apart. I keep this old copy because Rinpoche's notes are in it. When we worked on it, I have to repeat what he said. Here it is, the last one. So, So chapter 10, it's about misidentifying the object to be negated. Again, everything's negate, negate, negate. We'll have more about to say. Page 127, we'll start there. Stating others' assertions. Now, what do other people think about the object to be negated? He's going to go through an argument now where they say that things don't intrinsically exist. They don't exist at all. Inherent existence, the way you're going about your logic is wrong. They're misunderstanding. They say when the highest school Prasangika says things don't inherently exist, they say that means they don't exist. And they're working on that premise throughout this whole argument. Well, you said they don't inherently, they don't exist. And they go prove that things do exist. And they exist intrinsically. And then first he states the argument, page 127 and on, and then a little bit later he comes back on page 129, quoting Nagarjuna, and because the others quote Nagarjuna and Chandrakirti to prove their point, they misinterpret what Nagarjuna is saying, and they take his words out of context. Have to understand that when you do a lot of reading. So, or some reading, anyway. So first, the others' assertions. And this is the other schools of quote, he lumps them all into essentialists. Some people will believe that there's some core pointing at reality. Pointing out reality, this is that thing because, and there it is, that's it, like we can isolate it. Okay. Most of those who today, this is like 1400s, so claim to teach the meaning of Madhyamika say that all phenomena ranging from forms through omniscient consciousnesses are refuted by rational analysis of whether production and such exist as their own reality. For when a person analyzes anything that is put forward, there is not even a particle that can withstand analysis. That's what they're saying. Also, all four possible ways that something could be produced as an existent effect, a non-existent effect, and so forth are refuted, and there is nothing that is not included in these four. The Nagarjuna's thing, not from himself, not from... Okay, leave it at. These persons assert that a noble being's sublime wisdom, which perceives reality, perceives production, cessation, bondage, freedom, and so forth, as not existing in the least. Not inherently existing. Well, let it ride. Therefore, since things must be just as this sublime wisdom knows them, production and such do not exist. When we assert that production and such do exist, these persons ask, are they capable of withstanding rational analysis of their reality? If so, then there would be things that can withstand rational analysis, and thus there would be truly existent things. If not, then how is it possible for something that has been rationally refuted to exist? Something's rationally been refuted, how could it exist? This is a misuse of a type of analysis. So let's see. Similarly, when we hold that production and such exist, these persons ask, does valid cognition establish them? If we claim that it does, they reply that since the sublime wisdom perceiving reality perceives production as not existent, it is impossible for that wisdom to establish production. And I have a note from Rinpoche now which solves the whole problem. You can even make it as a computer telling us we're doing the wrong. It's two types of analysis. To establish the mundane world, valid conventional thoughts. When you are using the highest wisdom analysis, looking for the ultimate nature of reality, that's a different technique. That technique is not valid for everyday world. That technique is only valid when we're applying. And Rinpoche says that wisdom is not the authority for the conventional appearance. That wisdom puts conventional appearance on this side and looks to see if there's any core underneath all that. No, there's no core, but yet they appear. That's the big thing. So you'll hear this over and over again. Don't worry. So it's like a voice saying, I'm sorry, you're using the wrong analysis. You want me to remind you of this in the future? You should tell your brain that. I don't know. If we claim that it does, and they say the sublime wisdom, okay, doesn't establish it. Further, if we argue that production is established by conventional visual consciousness and such, they reply that it is impossible for such conventional consciousness to be valid conditions that establish production because scriptural sources refute the claim that those conventional consciousnesses are valid cognitions. They are not valid cognitions for looking for ultimate inherent existence. They are valuable or valid for the world. So you look at things, and as the world sees it, as Buddha says, what the world affirms, I affirm, without thinking about the underlying reality. Yes, this is this, that's that, okay. Go underneath all of that, you find that no, it's not exactly that, but for convenience sake, things flow. Okay. Now they start quoting all kinds of sutras to make their false point, misunderstanding the sutras and not knowing where in the context that sutras are making these points. The eye, ear, nose, the King of Concentration Sutra says the eye, ear, and nose consciousness are not valid cognitions. Not valid for the ultimate, valid for the convention. I added that. The tongue, body, and mental consciousnesses are also not valid cognitions. If these sensory consciousnesses were valid cognitions, of what use to anyone would the noble being's path be? Not valid for looking at the ultimate reality. I'll keep saying they're not wisdom consciousnesses. Okay? They're mundane consciousnesses. And as long as they're not, corrupted by false vision and stuff like you have jaundice, everything looks yellow, then they're valid. Also, Chandrakirti's commentary on the Middle Way says, the world is not valid in any way. They argue that we cannot say that production exists without valid establishments, for we ourselves do not assert this, and it is not reasonable. And Rinpoche said, however, we hold that conventional consciousness is valid. The world's consciousness is valid for what the world is looking at. That's all. That's its sphere of authority. Looking beyond that for the mode of being of things that appear to us, then you have to use ultimate analysis. That ultimate analysis is the authority of how the thing really is, how its mode of being is. It's not the authority of for everyday world. It's misused. If you misuse that and look at everyday reality through a wisdom consciousness, no, it's the wrong application of the method. That's all. That's the gist of the whole argument. We'll go over this with Geshe Sopa. He's waiting in the wings. Right now he's having tea. Tibetan tea that I can't stand. All right. They also argue that if we are to assert production, since it cannot be asserted ultimately in Madhyamaka, we will have to assert it conventionally. But that is unreasonable because Chandrakirti's commentary on the Middle Way says, the argument which shows that production from self and from other are untenable in the context of ultimate reality, also shows that inherent production is untenable even conventionally. As this is so, what argument will demonstrate that the production you believe in? Thus they say that the argument refuting ultimate production also refutes conventional production. There's the problem, which is said. The argument looking for the ultimate analysis is not the authority for conventional reality. Conventional reality, valid conventional analysis. Ultimate reality, what's underneath these appearances, because there's some sort of problem. So there must be something. It's the authority for that. When you analyze something with ultimate existence, ultimate reasoning, or wisdom, consciousness, etc., that thing finally disappears. We'll hear that again in the text here. So, and then, see, nothing is conventionally, without worrying about it, it's there. You're going to walk into that building if you think it's not there. Okay. So, furthermore, these persons say that this is on page 128 of LamRim 3. Furthermore, these persons say that if we assert that production exists despite the lack of an effect which is produced from any of the four, itself, other, and so forth, then when we try to carry out the Madhyamaka refutation of production through investigating these four alternatives, we will fail. For we ourselves will have already allowed a type of production which is not among these four. Poor argument. Also, they say that if there were production from any of these four, then it would have to be a production from a cause which is something other than the effect, for we do not accept the remaining three production from self, other, and causelessly. However, this is not reasonable because Chandrakirti says production from another does not exist even in the world. Chandrakirti meant, and here's Rinpoche's note, inherently other was Chandrakirti's intent. So when Chandrakirti says it's not reasonable, production does not exist even in the world, inherent production does not exist. So thank you, Rato Chinlun Rinpoche. Please come soon. We need all the help we can get. Therefore, these persons say that you should not add the qualifying word ultimate when refuting production, for Chandrakirti's clear words refutes the addition of this qualification. They're wrong. Among those who argue in this way, there are some who say that they do not accept production and such even conventionally, while others accept that production and such do exist conventionally. However, all of them stick out their necks and argue. You can see whose side he's on. All of them stick out their necks and argue it is undeniable that the system of Master Chandrakirti is a rational refutation of essential or intrinsic nature, for he refutes intrinsic existence in terms of both truths. Thus, if something does not intrinsically exist, how could it exist? Well, it does. Non-inherent existence does not mean lack of existence. To exist is to exist conventionally. Fine. Therefore, adding the qualification ultimate to the object negation is the procedure only in the Svatantrika Madhyamaka system. And now he goes on to showing that these assertions are wrong. However, we will stop here and go to Geshe Soka for a quick pickup. Geshe Soka, this book is heavy. This is the 5th volume of Geshe Soka's 5-volume LamRim commentary. And I always say how wonderful it is that Daishin Roshart's, the job that she did on the translation, makes it very clear. He says on page 72, it is most important to correctly identify the object that we are trying to negate. All right, now we're coming to a clear point. In order to be sure that a certain person is not here, we must know who that person is. We went through this last week, however. If we don't know who it is, we can't understand the statement, he's not here. Otherwise, we say selfless or without inherent nature. We must be able to identify the self or the inherent nature that is being negated. There's some repeating, but this is so important. We are negating an object and it is held to exist by a mind of ignorance. Intrinsic reality, mind of ignorance. So we'll skip down to the middle paragraph. Well, he quotes Shantidev on the middle of page 73. Without having identified the imputed thing, you cannot apprehend its absence, okay? In this context, the, quote, imputed things refers to the mental image of the object of negation itself, inherent existence, which is superimposed on the thing perceived, okay? We do that automatically. We talked about this last week. Let me come down, skipping a few lines. Our ordinary sense consciousnesses perceive everything as inherently existent. We don't realize that, but that's what they do. When you come to realizations, you will come back and say, oh, I was perceiving them wrong. Such thinking arises naturally, though it may arise in addition owing to philosophical beliefs, but philosophical beliefs are not the deep-down mistake. That could be eliminated by other philosophical beliefs. The innate misconception has to be eliminated by careful meditation. A realization of its truth and then burning it in with meditation, making it a habit. As strong of a habit as it is to go the wrong way, we make it a strong habit to go the right way. So here's where we left off last week. We see it as existing from its own side, objectively. This means that we always see it and frequently conceive of it as inherently existent, things we see. And we hear, we think, all of that, which is an additional imputation on top of the conventional thing itself. The mind that naturally grasps things as inherently existent actually grasps the object of negation. Oh, inherent existence. But it cannot ascertain it as such. Those who study, low-rig, appeared but not ascertained. You see, like walking in a crowd, you see George or so, but you didn't recognize George. You just blew by you. You might know him. You're not attuned. Oh, George, somebody say, hey, you just didn't say hello to George. Appeared but not ascertained. These things appear to us, but we're not ascertaining them, which means we're not giving it the right assessment as to what it really is. It's inherent existence. We don't know that because we don't even know what inherent existence is right now. But we're learning. We're learning. So it cannot ascertain it as such. Only a mind of wisdom, generated through ultimate analysis, can recognize the object of negation for what it is. So that's why we're going through this technique. We have this appearance all the time. Now we have to realize that it is a false appearance. Such a mind can clearly identify the mental image of inherent existence and then negate it. We need to investigate whether things really exist as they appear or whether they are just conventionally imputed. There are two aspects to being conventionally imputed, internal and external. What does he mean? It corresponds to thought, internal, and language, respectively, external. Not so hard. When we analyze this situation deeply, we can discover what it would be for things to exist inherently just as they appeared. Well, let's see. If they existed inherently, then this, and this would come into effect. Oh, that's how we go about this. Once we have discovered this, then we can identify the object of negation. We already see the object of negation constantly. We perceive everything as inherently existent all the time without any effort. Hey, give us credit, hey. Yet, even though inherent existence always appears to us, we do not discern it. He's repeating the point for emphasis. Smart. So we need to understand the measure of that object of negation, what it is and what it isn't, the measure of it. Correct analytical examination will provide us with a specific criterion. If it exists at all, then it must exist in such and such a way. That's how we go about pulling this apart. To analyze to pull apart. Well, deconstruct, man, I can use that. I don't know if that exactly fits the method. Once we have understood this criterion, we have identified the object of negation. Then we can take the next step and, apply this criterion. We can ask that you're going for freedom now. We can ascertain that because the object of negation does not exist in such and such a way, it does not exist at all. The object of negation does not exist at all, inherent existence. That's what doesn't exist at all, not the everyday things. Consider this example. Here we go again, the old favorite. You guessed it, rabbit horns. Hey, Harry, get the rabbit horn dummy out. Thank you. You know what a horn looks like, so you can ascertain that if a rabbit had one, it would be like this. No, I'm not going to pantomime that. However, you know that a rabbit does not have something like this. Therefore, you can negate the existence of a rabbit horn. If you did not clearly understand that criterion of a horn, then you might incorrectly reject the existence of rabbit ears. Oh, the rabbit ears must be its horn. Horns, plural. So we have to know what the object of negation is, otherwise we make a mistake and get rid of the wrong thing. We're getting rid of a legitimate thing. We need to have an exact criterion of the object of negation clearly in mind. Only then can our negation be accurate and negate the desired object, in this case, inherent existence. If we do not precisely determine the general concept of inherent existence, the scope of our negation will be either too wide or too narrow. It shouldn't be too wide, shouldn't be too narrow. As a result, we will not properly understand shunyata, the lack of inherent existence. Does this seem like a chicken and egg situation to you? To understand shunyata, we must identify the object of negation, and to negate it, yet at the same time of identifying the object of negation and negating it, we must already understand shunyata. Wait a minute. No. You can debate whether these two occur at the same time. Check this carefully. So that's it for now. We'll check this carefully for the next 2 days. We meet again Wednesday night, the 11th. We're running out of time. Oh my God, me and my big mouth. So we'll continue on page 74 of Geshe Sopa's 5th LamRim volume. And then go back to the main text, etc. For whom will we pray? Yay. Frank Galati. Okay. Lorraine. Oh, sorry, David. Good morning, Wikiat. Hi, Rebecca. Yes, hi, everybody. Okay, so Galati and whoever else you wish to pray for, Sutra, the Recollection of Noble Treatise. I'm sorry, but we may go over time. I hope you'd have an appointment at the White House or something. Don't bother, he's in Mexico. Or you're entertaining heads of state at your house? I see. I tell them to wait. Sutra on the Recollection of the Noble Three Jewels. I prostrate to the Omniscient One. Thus the Buddha, Bhagavata, Tathagata, Arahat, Samyak Sang, Buddha, the learned and virtuous one, the Sugata, the knower of the world, the charioteer and tamer of beings, the unsurpassable one. The teacher of devas and humans is the Buddha Bhagavat. The Tathagata is in accord with all merit. He does not waste the roots of virtue. He is completely ornamented with all patience. He is the basis of the treasures of merit. He is adorned with the minor marks. He blossoms with the flowers of the major marks. His activity is timely and appropriate. Seeing him, he is without disharmony. He brings true joy to those along with faith. His knowledge cannot be overpowered. His strength cannot be challenged. He is the teacher of all sentient beings. He is the father of Bodhisattvas. He is the king of noble ones. He is the guide of those who journey to the city of nirvana. He possesses immeasurable wisdom. He possesses inconceivable confidence. His speech is completely pure. His melody is pleasing. One never has enough of seeing him. His form is incomparable. He is not stained by the realm of desire. He is not stained by the realm of form. He is not affected by the formless realm. He is completely liberated from suffering. He is completely and utterly liberated from the skandhas. He is not possessed with dhatus. We got it there. I just got text to pray for David's sister. Yes, David, we're praying for, and we will. And for 49 days, I will pray for. Thank you, David. He is not possessed with dhatus. Ayatanas are controlled. He has completely cut the knots. He is completely liberated from extreme torment. He is liberated from craving. He has crossed over the river. He is perfected in all the wisdoms. He abides in the wisdom of the Buddha Bhagavat, who arise in the past, present, and future. He does not abide in nirvana. He abides in the ultimate perfection. He dwells on the bhumi where he sees all sentient beings. All these are the perfect virtues of the greatness of the Buddha Bhagavat. The holy Dharma is good at the beginning, good in the middle, and good at the end. Its meaning is excellent. Its words are excellent. It is uncorrupted. It is completely perfect and completely pure. It completely purifies. The Bhagavat teaches the Dharma well. It brings complete vision. It is free from sickness. It is always timely. It directs one further, seeing it fulfills one's purpose. It brings discriminating insight for the wise. The Dharma, which is taught by the Bhagavat, is revealed properly in the Vinaya. It is renunciation. It causes one to arrive at perfect enlightenment. It is without contradiction. It is pithy. It is trustworthy and puts an end to the journey. As for the Sangha of the great jnana, they enter completely, they enter insightfully, they enter straightforwardly, they enter harmoniously. They are worthy of veneration with joined palms, they are worthy of receiving prostration, they are a field of glorious merit, they are completely capable of receiving all gifts. They are an object of generosity, they are a great object of complete generosity. The protector who possesses great kindness, the omniscient teacher, the basis of oceans of merit and virtue, I prostrate to the Tathagata. Pure, the cause of freedom from passion, virtuous, liberating from the lower realms. This alone is the supreme ultimate truth. I prostrate to the Dharma, which is peace. Having been liberated, they show the path to liberation. They are fully dedicated to the disciplines. They are a holy field of merit and possess virtue. I prostrate to the Sangha. I prostrate to the Buddha, the leader. I prostrate to the Dharma, the protector. I prostrate to the Sangha, the community. I prostrate respectfully and always to these three. The Buddha's virtues are inconceivable. The Dharma's virtues are inconceivable. The Sangha's virtues are inconceivable. Having faith in these inconceivables, therefore the fruitions are inconceivable. May they be born in a completely pure realm. David, I'm sorry for your trouble, and also for all of you who have experienced loss. Not fun. Prayer for the flourishing of Tsong-kha-pa's teachings. I'm going swiftly to stay in the time frame. I don't think I'll make it. Though he's the father, producer of all conquerors, as a conqueror's son, he produced the thought of upholding the conqueror's dharma in infinite worlds. Through this truth may the conqueror Lozang's teachings flourish. When of yore in the presence of Buddha Indraketu, he made his vow, the conqueror and his offspring praised this powerful courage. Through this truth may the conqueror Lozang's teachings flourish. That the lineage of pure view and conduct might spread, he offered a white crystal rosary to the sage, who gave him a conch and prophesied. Through this truth may the conqueror Lozang's teachings flourish. His pure view of free of eternity or destruction. His pure meditation cleansed of dark fading and fog. His pure conduct practiced according to the conqueror's orders. May the conqueror Lozang's teachings flourish. Learn, since he extensively sought out learning, reverent, rightly applying it to himself. Good, dedicating all for beings in the doctrine. May the conqueror Lozang's teachings flourish. Through being sure that all scripture is definitive and interpretive without contradiction, advice for one's person's practice, he stopped all misconduct. May the conqueror Lozang's teachings flourish. Listening to explanations of the three Pitakas. realized teachings, practice of the three trainings. His skilled and accomplished life story is amazing. May the Kanko Losang's teachings flourish. Outwardly calmed and subdued by the hearer's conduct, inwardly trusting in the two stages practice, he allied without clash the good paths of Sutra and Tantra. May the Kanko Losang's teachings flourish. Combining voidness explained as the causal vehicle with great bliss achieved by metta, the effect vehicle, heart essence of 80,000 Dharma bundles, may the Kanko Losang's teachings flourish. By the power of the ocean of oath-bound doctrine protectors, like the main guardians of the three beings' paths, the quick-acting Lord Vaishravana Karmayama, may the Kanko Losang's teachings flourish. In short, by the lasting and glorious Guru's lives, by the earth being full of good, learned, reverend holders of the teaching, and by the increase of power of its patrons, may the Kanko Losang's teachings flourish. 8 verses on training the mind. With the determined to accomplish the highest welfare of all sentient beings, who surpass even a witch-granting jewel, I will learn to hold them supremely dear. Whenever I associate with others, I will learn to think of myself as the lowest amongst all, and respectfully hold others to be supreme from the very depths of my heart. In all actions, I will learn to search into my mind, and as soon as a disturbing emotion arises, endangering myself and others, I will firmly face and avert it. I will learn to cherish ill-natured beings and those oppressed by strong misdeeds and sufferings, as if I had found a precious treasure difficult to find. When others out of jealousy treat me badly with abuse, slander, and so on, I will learn to take all loss and offer the victory to them. When the one whom I benefited with great hope unreasonably hurts me very badly, I will learn to view that person as an excellent spiritual guide. In short, I will learn to offer to everyone, without exception, all help and happiness directly and indirectly, and respectfully take upon myself all harm and suffering of my mothers. I will learn to keep all these practices undefiled by the stains of the 8 worldly concerns, and by understanding all phenomena as like illusions, be released from the bondage of attachment. Thank you so much for your patient listening. Our next class is 7 o'clock on the 11th. It will be live. You can come to our parsonage house in South Orange. Be there at 7 o'clock, and refreshments are served. Big love to all of you. Take care, guys.